Our learning objectives for mastering the cardiovascular system are to assess the jugular venous pressure and pulsation, assess the carotid upstroke, palpate hips, lifts, thrills to determine the point of maximal impulse, PMI to auscultate heart sounds and murmurs in 6 positions on the chest wall using the diaphragm and bell of the stethoscope to identify S1 and S2. Utilizing clinical reasoning, we move from general observation to more specific conclusions will lead us to skilled and comprehensive assessment of the patient. For instance, the general appearance of the patient provides many clues to cardiac illness. Note the patient's color, respiratory rate, and level of anxiety. These preliminary observations can be helpful as we begin taking the health history when talking with the patient. Keep in mind the three goals of every health history: to establish a trusting and supportive relationship, to gather information, and to offer information. Let's review the three key vascular structures in the neck: the carotid artery, the internal jugular vein, and the external jugular vein. Carotid artery deep to the sternomastoid muscle. Internal jugular vein lies beneath the sternomastoid muscle, adjacent to the carotid artery. Internal jugular vein not normally visible. External jugular vein runs at an angle along the sternomastoid muscle toward the clavicle. After comprehensive hand hygiene, we are ready for the physical examination. Estimating jugular venous pressure is the measurement of the highest oscillation point or meniscus, reflects pressure in the right atrium. Look for the oscillation point along the sternomastoid muscle between the clavicle and the angle of the jaw or just posterior to the sternomastoid. Has a more vigorous thrust. Internal jugular pulsations rarely palpable. Carotid pulse almost always palpable. Internal jugular pulsations are eliminated by light pressure on vein. Level of internal jugular pulsations level changes with position. Carotid pulse unchanged by position. Internal jugular pulsation level usually falls with inspiration. Carotid pulse not affected by inspiration. Extend an elongated rectangular object such as 3 by 5 card from the meniscus point of pulsation. Extend a centimeter ruler vertically from the external angle. Establish two vertical and horizontal lines. Make sure that one edge of the card is at the point oscillation of jugular pulsation. These steps allow us to make an accurate measurement of the JVP. In hypervolemic patients, JVP can be as high as the angle of the jaw. In hypovolemic patients, JVP may be below the sternal angle. Carotid pulse provides valuable information about valvular heart disease. Assessment will include both palpation to assess the amplitude and contour of the carotid upstroke and auscultation for the presence or absence of brevis from turbulated blood flow. Press just inside the medial border of a well-relaxed sternomastoid muscle, roughly at the level of the cricoid cartilage. Slowly increase pressure until you feel a maximal pulsation, then slowly decrease pressure until you best sense the arterial pressure wave and contour. Illustration represents the contour of the pulse wave, speed of the upstroke, duration of its summit, and speed of the downstroke. Normal upstroke is brisk, smooth, and rapid follows S1. Summit is smooth, rounded, and roughly mid-systolic. Downstroke is the less abrupt than the upstroke. Detect abnormalities such as pulse that has a bounding upstroke. These are other abnormalities. After palpating the carotid arteries, listen carefully over both arteries with the diaphragm of a stethoscope. Some examiners use the bell also. Ask patient to hold breathing for a moment so breath sound do not obscure the sound of turbulent flow. Listen for a breath. Now turn to the cardiac examination and review the important features of cardiac anatomy. Examination of the heart consists of inspection, palpation, and auscultation. For palpation, stand at the patient's right side. Have the patient remain supine. First, inspect the anterior chest, noting any hefts or lifts. Later in the examination, we will palpate the clearly identify the apical impulse. Now proceed with palpating the chest wall. First palpate for the hips or thrills using your finger pads. Hold them flat or obliquely on the body surface as we palpate in the right and left interspaces along the left external border. Ventricular impulses may lift your fingers, suggesting ventricular dilation. Then check your thrills by pressing the ball of your hand firmly on the chest. Identify the apical impulse. It represents the brief pulsation of the left ventricle as it moves anteriorly during contraction and touches the chest wall. Using the palmar surfaces of several fingers, then for fingers assessments are fingertips followed by one finger alone. Palpate to confirm the characteristic of the apical impulse. Identify the location of the apical impulses by the interspaces in which we feel it and by its distance from the mid-sternal line. If experience difficulty in locating the apical impulse, ask partially roll on to left lateral side, palpate again the palmar surfaces of several fingers, measure the diameter of the impulse to feel for the amplitude of the apical impulse. Feel for a right ventricular impulse at the lower left external border while keeping one finger in the third interspace. Place additional finger tips in the fourth and fifth interspaces. Then feel for the right ventricular impulse in the epigastric. Auscultation of heart sounds is an important skill that leads directly to important clinical diagnosis. Closure of the heart valves creates a pair of audible heart sounds. First sound S1, second sound S2. This graphic represents the ventricular systole that occurs between S1 and S2. Ventricular diastole occurs between S2 and S1. Auscultation of heart sounds. Diaphragm is better for high pitched sounds. Bell is more sensitive to low pitched sounds. To begin the auscultation sequence, adjust your stethoscope. Begin listening in aortic area close to the sternum. Identify S1 and S2 in the aortic area. Aortic area S2 is louder than S1. Pulmonic area also S2 is louder than S1. Try to identify the inspiratory splitting of S2 into its two components. First component A2 from aortic valve closure, second component B2 from pulmonic valve closure. S2 usually diminishes in intensity while S1 becomes louder as we proceed down. To improve our ability to hear S3, S4 and the murmur of mitral stenosis, place the patient in the left lateral decubitus position. Notice how the third heart sound disappears when the bell is placed more firmly on the chest wall. Listen again with the light pressure. Palpating the carotid upstroke as we listen to the murmur is an important tip that helps us to decide if the murmur is systolic or diastolic. Systolic murmurs can be early, mid, or the late systolic. Mid-systolic murmur heard in physiologic flow murmur, gap just before S2 and S1. Pansystolic murmur heard in mitral regurgitation, mid-diastolic murmur as in mitral stenosis, crescendo murmur grows louder, decrescendo murmur grows softer, plateau murmur has the same intensity throughout. Radiation also refers to as transmission from the point of maximal intensity. To better detect the more subtle diastolic murmurs of aortic regurgitation and mitral stenosis, we should routinely use two maneuvers. The first maneuver is performed with the patient. The patient had diastolic murmur of aortic regurgitation. The second maneuver helps us detect the murmur of mitral stenosis.